Hello, everybody. I'm Daniel. I'm the founder of Startup CPG. If you're watching us on YouTube, hit the subscribe button. Check out all the good content. So I love this topic of just what is going to happen in the world of QR codes because, people coming out of the pandemic started getting trained on scanning QR codes. It is just not, I would say, kind of like second nature at this point, but maybe third nature, fourth nature. And it keeps rising more and more because people just keep understanding what's in there and how to unlock additional capabilities. And if you've been paying attention with GS1, it's going to be the standard as of 2027. My predictions are you're just going to see so many QR codes front of pack, even especially when we're using it for supply chain. I think why have it on the back when you can have it on the front at that point and just really give consumers really a touch point to understand what's going on with your brand and be very transparent. And I think, one push I think that I have for all of you guys listening along today would be just to think about like, yeah, how is all of our behavior as shoppers going to change, especially around QR codes as these things become much more prevalent? When you're in the store, like when do you actually scan something and how do you think that is going to change just when it's ubiquitous, like it's everywhere? You see the QR codes everywhere. What's the kind of stuff that you really want to know? What's going to actually make you scan it? Whether it's, probably everybody here has scanned a coupon or something just to learn more information or entered some kind of a rebate at some point, or just to like even see, well, what are they doing? Let me just scan this and see if I can really win that free helicopter. So I'm really excited to have a couple friends here speaking with us. So James from Orijin Plus, they have a very cool platform that does all of this stuff with QR codes, and he's going to show you. And I think you'll just really like thinking through a lot of the possibilities here. And Andrew from our friends at GS1 is back as well. GS1, which is kind of the standards for identity for the products, the stuff that makes sure that when they scan your product at the register, it works. It goes beep. So with that, James, I'd love to pass over to you, and then feel free to, drop comments in the chat here. Anything you guys are thinking about will be interesting. And then if you have kind of formal questions, throw them in the Q&A and we'll make sure to get to them.
Awesome. Well, thanks for the introduction, Daniel, and hello, everyone. And yeah, thanks for attending tonight, or tonight for me, day for you. So my name's James, founder of Orijin Plus. So Orijin Plus is a connected packaging platform, and we essentially power a lot of the feature set that sits behind that connection point being a QR code. So today, I was just going to run through a few different things. Firstly, I'll touch on my background. So we started developing our connected packaging platform as a CPG brand. So I'll touch on sort of our motivations for doing that and how we were utilizing connected packaging, and then how it's morphed into Orijin Plus today. And then I'm going to touch on the current and future expectations of connected packaging. So what's driving all this demand and utility out of your QR code? So where that is now and where it's going to be in the near future. And Andrew will definitely pick up on the 2027 sunrise. And then we're going to touch on how to optimize for the post-scan consumer experience. So someone moving from pack to digital, how best to treat that experience, and sort of how is it different from a general web experience. And then we're going to touch on the commercial opportunities of these scans. So what are the scan rates and what can be achieved? Before we hand over to Andrew, who will touch on the 2D barcodes, and then I'll close out with the GS1 resolver without getting too technical on that, and then leave plenty of time for questions. So to dive straight into it. So my backstory, it started as a CPG brand. So my brother and I, he's the gentleman lifting a box at the factory there. We were a farm produce brand, so a beef brand exporting across the globe. And, when we went about what we wanted to do, we really wanted to build supply chain transparency into our products. So our unique selling point, how we wanted to position ourselves as different, was really about traceability, transparency, connecting consumers back to farm, and equally us forward to market. At that time, so that's 2017, traceability was really around compliance. It wasn't around brand storytelling. It wasn't overly about marketing. So the products available to us were quite limited. So hence we went about developing our own, connected packaging platform as we have today. At the same time as, the same hustle as every other CPG brand here in the room today. We were heavy on the social content, connecting people back to farm, cooking demonstrations, et cetera, whilst also, navigating the expansion of markets, meeting with buyers, and everything else that goes with the CPG sort of scaling phase. At the same time, we're hiring a lot of software engineers to connect our product at a packaging level. And naturally, this is 2018, so blockchain was a pretty big buzzword at those times, and we're realists, and I'm not here today to preach that as a traceability solution, but we naturally did start developing a traceability solution using blockchain, but we were applying it straight into our supply chain. So very much a realist in that space. We were marched out of many co-packers for slowing up production. So we had to lean out that product quite quickly. And then once we sort of had nailed the traceability and transparency positioning on pack, we really wanted to solve the other sort of common problem with wholesale brands selling in retail, being we didn't know who our consumers were. So the mystery buyer, the retailers knew very well who was buying our products, but we didn't. So we went heavily into on-pack loyalty programs, and we sort of managed to really connect an exciting program where we leveraged the traceability, tied in the gamification of having consumers complete the chain, so end the journey. And then in doing that, we started to get to understand and know the first-party data and identify who our consumers were, and that was across the globe. So there's our journey from sort of woe to go, and that sort of started the development of the connected packaging platform that we have today called Orijin Plus. But to sort of touch on the topic today, packaging 2.0, what is it? Well, it's packaging doing more is a pretty obvious statement, and I know everyone in the room can read, but I will just read this out just to help unpack it a bit. So connected packaging transforms every product into a digital platform, delivering content, capturing behavior, and driving compliance, insight, and engagement. Sorry, I'll try and get that onto full screen, but sorry, I just saw the comment there about unfortunately, I'm on Google Slides and it doesn't seem to expand anymore beyond that. I'll play around with it and see if I can get it bigger for you. So essentially, a lot of expectation out of a QR code, and sort of where is that demand coming from, and obviously a lot of opportunity out of a QR code from that statement. So if we look at the different forces that are sort of demanding utility and service from a QR code, and I'll let Andrew talk about the 2D barcode. So when we look at one code on pack, some of the requirements that are going to be solved by this 2D barcode, and you know, for lack of a better term there, a QR code, is market access. So different product disclosures around entry into different market. Europe's definitely leading the charge in this space. Yeah, they have a digital product passport rolling out where you have to have proof of origin within different categories. And different markets are going to require certain levels of documentation for that particular product to be listed in that market. So access for consumers to have it. So market access is a big one. Supply chain partners, obviously, they want to integrate it, use it into their supply chain systems, their 3PLs, etc. But the big one that Andrew will talk about today is the beep at the checkout. So the replacement of the barcode with the QR code and having that function in all the state that the current barcode does, plus much more. Which then opens the opportunity for product recalls in live. So that would be where a point of sale device could flag a particular product as being recalled and therefore prevent the sale of that, is another opportunity that we're seeing come through. Circular economy, so capturing the complete and repeat life cycle of packaging. Again, the serialization of that in order to be able to demonstrate that it has been captured, and then the repeat cycle is another utility that's swinging from the 2D barcode. Mandates and legislations. So if we look at batch level certificates of analysis in the US with Rudy's Law, AB 8899, so you know, heavy metal toxicity reports at a batch level for any products being sold to children under 2 within obviously different regions of the US. But again, that's quite common and starting to emerge across most markets have got some sort of level of disclosure from a mandate or legislation that they're asking or requiring that can be connected to products at a batch level. And then compliance, you know, the opportunities around region-specific nutrient disclosures, localized recycling information. Europe's very big on this in their ability to sort of serve localized recycling information based on the country that that particular product is in. Data interoperability, sharing information with retailers beyond what we're going to talk about a lot today is what a consumer sees, but really retailers are going to want to access some of the information in a different format. And then the GS1 2027 Sunrise, which Andrew will talk about, the barcode to QR code. And then ultimately the modern consumer, which is where I want to spend most of today's sort of webinar talking about. If we're servicing the needs of the modern consumer, a lot of the other compliance and regulation and mandates and different things that are requiring utility of the 2D barcode start to fall into place. So I suppose, what is the modern consumer? Well, the modern consumer is someone that's, seeking proof, transparency, and validation beyond the label. As a generalist, someone could say they're skeptical. I wouldn't say that, but they are seeking more information. So they want to go beyond the packaging claim. They want to understand a little bit deeper around something that's been said about the product. And so what does that look like in numbers? Well, I think the growth of validation and comparison apps, and Yuka being one of the best in the world, is sort of demonstrates the willingness and demand for consumers to go beyond that label. So Yuka with 600,000 signups a month in the US alone, and that's equating to 90,000 barcode scans an hour with consumers wanting and seeking more information. So what that's showing us is consumers are already scanning, at large numbers. And what does connected packaging do in that frame? Well, it really gives brand owners the opportunity to own that narrative beyond the label, to own that experience of someone seeking out more information, going deeper, going from pack to digital. And it's not limited just to someone from looking for a health deep dive into the nutrient density of a particular product, or if it's good or bad for you, but also visibility around supply chain. So whether is from a certain market or not from a certain market, or what it looks like from an environmental impact standpoint. All of these are opportunities where a consumer can go deeper, and with connected packaging, the brand can control that narrative and share their story. And at the same time, offer an engagement piece. Okay, that's a big piece. It was a massive part of us and our brand story in developing Orijin Plus, is the ability to engage, provide that service of utility, and then open the opportunity to engage those consumers and get to know who they are. And in doing that, it's really important to consider that we need to look at the user experience of someone going from pack to digital is a lot different to a general web experience, where someone is in an exploration phase. So if they've come in via a social feed, a PPC ad, or whatever it might be, they've got time and they're willing to explore and willing to be sort of fed a narrative that the brand would like to share. And you've got 1 to 2 minutes to sort of share that before ultimately they'll bounce, or they'll carry through to whatever they're going to do if it was a checkout. From the pack to digital is a lot different. You've got 6 to 8 seconds. And the big difference here is the product is obviously in the person's hand. So with the product being in the person's hand, they've actually really spent a bit of time already exploring. So in that exploration phase has been given. They've reviewed the pack, they've read the pack. There's something on there that's triggered them to dive deeper and sort of grab a little bit more information. Their product awareness is a lot different, compared to the person that doesn't have the product in their hand. They may be working on product or brand recall. They may have heard about a product, as opposed to someone that's very high. They've got the product, they're holding it, they've appraised it, they're looking at something. And what that means is they're hitting that QR code for some answers or a bit of information. And that's why we have that lower sort of bounce rate, where we need to get them that information fast for them to have a positive experience. And that sort of starts to frame up the design implications around the ability to share that information super quick. Where it becomes difficult, if you're not handling this experience in the right frame, is, as we all know, every consumer is different, and what they're coming at that particular QR code for could be one of 20 or even up to 30 different things. There's a lot of information on packaging. There's something that's piqued their interest, and they've hit that particular QR code. So what I just wanted to demonstrate here is some examples around how to answer that within 1 click and 6 to 8 seconds, and to sort of serve that user experience in that framework. So what we're going to look at here is 2 examples, 2 branded web apps. A web app being closely aligned to a native app that you have on your phone, albeit this is operating in a browser. So with that same sort of level of functionality. So very sort of just generic and basic one here, but for this orange juice, where are these oranges from? And then with 1 click, they're into a supply chain. Okay, so if that was the thing that this particular consumer was concerned about or wanted to dive into, They're there within obviously less than 6 to 8 seconds, and then they can go deeper. Now, this is a blockchain verified sort of example where it's proving that it came from an orchard in California. Again, realists within the blockchain space, for us to have got the product into this position where you can collect this information from supply chain partners, serve it into a consumer, it was very difficult, it nearly broke us as a brand. So in order to do this, it needs to be simple. It can't layer in any more costs. It can't have your co-packer marching you out because you're trying to gather this granular data. And if that can be achieved, then it's a super effective way of sort of standing up some of your claims, but it doesn't also have to be on a blockchain. You can give this level of transparency just to show people where your product's from. Equally, this could be any of the attribute claims on a product. Is this generally organic? Is just an easy example. But again, one click, more information, clicking through. So we do see a lot of activity around consumers clicking through labels. And this is going a little bit deeper than what they've had other than what's been put on the pack. They can get to a certificate. Now, there's a lot of work in this space, with GS1, and they're probably, leading the charge with where this will go, but verified documents. And I think this is only the tip of the iceberg of where we can get to that. But giving consumers access to this within, really quick, one click is super, super powerful. Equally, how to recycle, but this is localized. So serving localized recycling information, very big in certain jurisdictions around the world, but also effective in helping consumers understand how to recycle within their particular region. And then, if someone wants to buy your product, naturally you don't want to get in the way of that, so you need to serve them there quickly. What's interesting here is a different experience for someone scanning in America, seeing American retailers, or it could be region specific to a particular state. So connected packaging is obviously identifying where that particular consumer is. Whereas if I was to scan this in Australia, same code, different experience, okay? Putting me straight to my local retailers. And that's quite achievable with these experiences. Again, the certificate of analysis, like proving that there's no heavy metals. At a batch level, this doesn't have to be complicated. This doesn't also have to have the batch number in the 2D barcode, which Andrew will touch on, but here they've inputted the batch number, and then you're serving back that COA for them to see that there's no heavy metals in this particular product. I think this is an interesting one with the recent sort of scandals with creatine or the lack thereof, which is driving a lot of the skepticism in the market where, the gummies obviously didn't have any creatine in them, but someone wanting to go beyond the label. So this was also something that happened down here in Australia recently with a New Zealand creatine gummy brand. Also, unfortunately, no creatine or very low levels of. So this is what's driving the sort of demand to sort of dive deeper into some of these nutrient claims. And this is where the opportunity is to go beyond that panel and share some pretty exciting information if you want to build your identity around being transparent for those consumers that are looking. And then reorder equally, click, and then they're out. And then, whether you want to link them through to your socials is super powerful to get them across to other platforms. Again, let's make it easy for them. Reviews, etc. Again, one click. So we don't want to waste their time. And then really the big opportunity here with connected packaging is, the brand marketer's dream is how we can engage these consumers. Now, this might have been your primary call to action on pack to get someone to a sweepstakes, or it could be a loyalty reward or anything else that you want to do. And then you're transferring them over to some other information about brand. But in this particular case, if they've come in and now they've opened up the opportunity for a sweepstakes, super effective way here. This is actually listing 3 different sort of campaigns. So could be a loyalty reward, sweepstakes, and even a coupon, or it could be if you're running a program with ISLE or anything you want to link them through to, you can sort of make that effective here with the end game to sort of identify these consumers are, for you to then to power some of your other marketing suites and drive your like-for-like audiences across other mediums. So this is super easy. Within our platform, we obviously power a lot of this, and your ability to collect this information, verify receipts, verify that it is a genuine consumer that's entering this particular thing and gathering that data. And I suppose that's sort of putting us into the sort of holy grail of connected packaging and hopefully a lot of sort of entertaining conversations and questions about this. But it's the big opportunity as brand market is obviously first party data. Okay, so it's a retail medium that you control. It's your data there, it's your consumers, and if you can engage them at a secondary level, whether you're identifying them, even more powerful. At a base level, you're identifying someone a lot different. They're holding your product as compared to someone on your website. So there's sort of 2 different sort of data sets that are being collected here. But, the holy grail being that you're using these insights to contribute to your business strategy, and you're leveraging what is an always-on digital ad, converting new consumers, turning first-time discerning purchases into lifetime loyal customers. And obviously, where things really get exciting is running from one code, multiple different geo-specific promotions, regional specific information based on if it might be in Japan or wherever it might be. You can drive that retail content from the same code. So this, for lack of sort of framing it up, is all what is going to be able to be achieved from the 2D barcode. Okay, so interchangeable between QR code and 2D barcode. When Andrew gets talking, what we've demonstrated here is a 2D barcode. So everything we've talked about can occur from the 2D barcode, and it can beep at the checkout, and it can gather all this information. So I'll let Andrew sort of unpack that a little bit more. But just to touch on what's achievable, okay? So 1 to 2% is your base scan rate, okay? And globally, that's what's being achieved at a base front of pack QR code. So I look at that like a always-on digital ad at an average click-through rate. Or say an average click-through rate of 1.3% is sort of where that an average PPC could sit. You're achieving that at a base scan level, and it's your always-on campaign. It's collecting data at a granular level, as in this person's actually holding the product, and then the opportunity to convert them into that first-party data with some extra engagement. But really, where you want to start to sort of move towards would be optimized calls to action, and that's where you can achieve your 8 to 16% engagement rate. So yes, that can be sweepstakes, it can be loyalty rewards, it can be any form of competition that to increase that rate, but it can also be super effective calls to action around we're the only XYZ brand that will show you XYZ. Check out, hit our QR code, and we will show you, driving people from socials, using it as a collection point around, hey, we're running something, check it out in store, hit the QR code on pack. So again, it's a collection point for you to start to collect that information. So if you can optimize those CTAs around, hey, we're the only brand that'll show you this, check it out, that's where you can start to see that 8 to 16% scan rates. And then North Star campaigns, sitting between 30 and 40% is achievable. GS1 UK, in partnership with Barocca, we're achieving 35% scan on, unfortunately not this pack, but it's one in the UK with a very effective call to action. This is a vitamin B effervescent sort of drink, or you drop it in your drink. So they're achieving 35% scan rate. As a brand, we got as high as 37% scan rate. It did take time to get to there, but super effective, where we connected the traceability story, invited consumers to complete the chain and have them complete the journey. And for that, we rewarded them. We identified who they are, and we drove a hyper loyal consumer base that was really, one, contributing to our transparency of where our products were being consumed, but in reverse, we got to identify who those customers are. So from my understanding, 40% hasn't been cracked. If someone breaks a 40% scan rate, I think they deserve some sort of, Connected Packaging Golden Globe. But these are the opportunities, and it is a brand marketer's dream to be creative, right? How do you get people to there? How do we get people to scan this? I think there's many ways, and there's many of creatives and people that can come up with things that other people aren't doing to try and get that scan rate up to that level. So we've sort of covered a bit of ground here, and we're sort of looking at a near future or a very current state where one QR code can look after the needs of the modern consumer, meet different compliance requirements from around the world, adopt emerging mandates and legislations that are requiring extra disclosures on product, power market access where different jurisdictions are requiring certain information to be unpacked. I think a great example here is wine into the EU, requiring nutrition information panels, allowing that to be done via QR codes. But, those sorts of changes are going to occur, and with a connected packaging solution, you can adapt to it faster than having to relabel a heap of things. Okay, so, having it there and having it to sort of power what could be a change is less of a problem when you can sort of power that from your QR code. And we'll see more of that happen over the next 2, 3+ years. Equally, supply chain partners servicing their needs, interoperability of data, and I'll touch on that with the GS1 Resolve a bit. And then your marketing department chasing the first-party data, and then over to the global standards, which is a good segue to Andrew. and how we're moving ultimately from the barcode to the QR code. And just bear with me because I'm going to power Andrew's slides.
I wonder, James, do you think you could actually, just before we jump into the GS1 slides, do you think you could actually just show people like maybe a quick demo of actually how Orijin Plus works? I think people, especially just given all the kind of stuff that you showed people is possible, I think it'd be cool just to show everyone like, here's how you can actually power something like that in a pretty simple way.
Yeah, cool. I'll do that. What I'll do. So this is a pretty quick fly through of Orijin Plus, and I'll just sort of pause on key points. But we sort of break things into different hubs. So you have an engagement hub, a transparency hub, and a traceability hub. Now you'll see most of your workflows will connect into these hubs when you start to build out your smart codes. So what I'm going to demonstrate here is a base level GS1 2D barcode. So you can create as many of these as you like. So it's simply adding your GT and your SKU, and then it's going to redirect to your homepage. Okay, so at a base level, a compliant 2D barcode using the our resolver to send them. So again, your domain, not our domain. You set up your domain. So that's a base level GS1 2D barcode that we have in the platform. And then ultimately, these are smart codes. So you're choosing your different web app experience that are all customizable to brand. And then you're going through sort of choosing what features you want to plug in. So you can add features over time, you can remove features over time, you can turn on loyalty rewards, you can turn on competitions. So once you're active with your QR code, your smart code, this all becomes quite simple, adding supply chain stories. Here I'm going to tick the 2D barcode, so you can turn that into a 2D barcode at any point, but you obviously will need to reprint that particular code. And then you're going about building your web app experience. A lot of this information can be piped in. But here, what I am going to click on, if I remember correctly, is just adding some, well, you can add a supply chain story. Again, not a blockchain verified story, but you can build out a supply chain interactive map story, add different levels of certifications, and then I won't go through building everything. So you're setting up your custom domain if you're not already set up. And if we jump over here into extras and admin, this is the resolver. I'll touch on this later. That's something that's going to become quite important in the near future. This is your admin where you can redirect. Here I'm going to click on the ability to run a loyalty reward. And equally, you can be connecting a competition or anything you're doing with ISLE or any other groups into here. But what's probably super, you're setting up your different campaign settings, where you want this particular one to be serving. Okay, so it could be on the East Coast, it could be on the West Coast, it could be specific to one country. That's all achievable. You're layering in all your relevant T's and C's, and then you're starting to gather this information. So if we look here, this particular user, so he's been authenticated. So he obviously purchased the product to be able to enter this particular loyalty reward. I think there was 2 in the table before, so 1 didn't. So the receipt that was uploaded was not verified. Again, connecting different coupons, different campaigns, starting to gather and collect these consumers, which ultimately you're going to pipe out into your other CRMs or Klaviyo or wherever you need to put that information. This is just building out a supply chain story to give a bit of transparency around your supply chain, different activities, whatever region it comes from. This will make more sense after Andrew's done a bit of a talk around the 2D barcode, but this is actually connecting a certificate to a batch number. But this particular here is actually when you start to layer in extra information into the 2D barcode. So you can be layering in that batch number. So a lot of fresh produce is going to be obviously labeling, and this becomes more accessible to them in the near future to have a lot of this extra information layered in, whether it's production dates, batch numbers. Again, that's folding into the 2D barcode, which Andrew will talk about. That's powered from here. And then you can sort of run your tracking information from here. This is super relevant, obviously, for anyone in the categories of FSMA. That's, in the near future. But we do have obviously all sorts of apps. There's an app in here that you can collect this supply chain information. You can pump this to the blockchain. You can do everything that we sort of demonstrate in those web apps and power it from here. I think there's one little thing I'll show quickly is if you already have a QR code on pack and you want to start to use some of this functionality, you can create a company link page. Company link page just sort of links out if that backs out. So it's really creating your web apps that are future 2D barcodes, right? And you one-click experience straight through to those particular products, and this is creating somewhere for you to redirect an existing on-pack QR code that you can get going with today. And then, yeah, that's basically the link that you can redirect to, and obviously start to power some analytics at this level. And I think I just remembered on this demo that I didn't show you where all the analytics were set. Over in your admin, you have different analytics sitting here for your relevant code. So look, super fast demo, and obviously, yeah, probably leave some more time for questions on that. And then I'll let Andrew.
James,
Yep.
what's if people want to like, do you want to talk about like the offer for Startup CPG or just like a good way for people to follow up? I have the link here that I can paste in the Slack.
Yeah, cool. So, yeah, so look, we're super excited. I think we're sort of at day, not sure, like day 13 of the original email out where we have an exclusive offer for Startup CPG community. So, which is usually our paid plan, and just what Daniel shared in the channel. So free for life. Join in. There's no taking of any sort of credit cards here. That gives you 6 smart codes. It gives you a heap of new features around different bits of analytics and what is sort of sitting in our senior tiers. There's a heap there, and really keen for anyone to jump in. And equally, we love working closely with the brand. So we love getting involved when it comes to a lot of your collection of information or different campaigns or spitballing ideas. Definitely for us, yeah, it's something that we enjoy. So that's there for everyone to take advantage of. I think we've got 2 days left on that trial, but I'll have it definitely emailed back out to
Yeah.
everyone in the webinar.
Cool. Yeah. Just to reiterate, so this is a special offer from the Orijin Plus team. It's valid for 2 more days because it's been going on for 2 weeks now. So you can get the free for life. You can get their Grow Plus Plus plan, which is normally $1,200 a year, and you don't need to give them a credit card or anything. So I just pasted that link in the Slack.
Awesome. Well, Andrew, I'll hand it over to you. We've talked a lot about it, 2D barcode. So, yeah, keen for you to sort of put a bit of color behind it.
Yeah. I'll just kind of add some color to what you've already done. It's a lot. I'm loving what that demo was, first off. But for everybody, I am Andrew Moorhead. I am a global standards manager at GS1 US. And I'm just going to kind of take you over some basics around 2D barcodes and GS1 digital link alongside GS1 standards. So, James, you want to go to the next slide? First and foremost, I always have to do this antitrust caution. GS1 is committed to comply fully with antitrust laws. So we ask that discussing prices, margins, or any other sensitive topics is not done here. And then you can kind of just jump to the next slide too, and then skip over that. That's just another trademark notice. So first off, who is GS1? A lot of people have never heard of us. Sometimes they say GSI, but we are a neutral, non-for-profit organization known as the barcode people usually, but there's a lot more that goes into it behind that. So as James was basically taking you through the demo and everything that Orijin Plus does, we are the data behind the barcodes. So those numbers that go into your UPC EANs, as well as what would go into your QR codes to help you go beat that checkout. Now, there's so many businesses around the world, so many languages that are spoken, and we serve so many different industries worldwide. So creating standards around the use of that identification and the data is a global language of business. And that's what a lot of people will look at us as. So with 10 billion barcodes being scanned worldwide, there has to be a common way that everybody can receive and use this data. And if you can jump to the next slide, that kind of will help explain it, because think about when you're traveling and you have to have an adapter just to plug in your devices in different portions of the world. I consider GS1 that adapter to where you're able to interact with all those barcodes and get that information no matter where it's being utilized, because it's the standard format. It's a standardized format of how that data is being looked at. And that's a big deal because you don't want to try and send something that has the wrong formatted data to a country and they can't even process what it is, won't be identified. That disrupts your supply chain. So the common types of barcodes, if you want to jump to the next slide, and many of us have seen them, the EAN UPC, this has been around for 50 plus years. It's unchanged technology because it just works. It has that G10, that number underneath those lines and spaces that help identify the barcode or the product and goes beep at checkout. Now, those are your typical point of sale barcodes. There's also logistics unit barcodes, which are optimized for your high levels of packaging as they're going through the supply chain, maybe from manufacturer to distribution center. These barcodes are made to be more resilient in certain aspects, but also hold a bit more data. Now, when you look at 2D barcodes, it can do all of those things: point of sale, logistics unit, and also that web enablement. So all those use cases that James was talking about, that's what these 2D barcodes are. But all of it is made possible with GS1 Digital Link. So if you go to the next slide, you'll see that it's the same vehicle for carrying your data. You have your UPC barcode, which we typically call a data carrier, and it's encoded with your GTIN, that data structure. Your 2D barcode using GS1 Digital Link will have that same information encoded into the barcode. Now, there's a standard format of how that's going to be utilized so that systems all over the globe can process that data without having to have specific ways that your systems are updated or formatted just to be able to take that information out. So it's not so much that anything's changing besides the vehicle that's going to be carrying your data. And if you go to the next slide, James, it'll show that these barcodes just hold a lot more data, but still remain relatively small compared to your UPC EAM barcodes. Those barcodes just carry usually 12 or 13 digits, and they're pretty large in nature. But with your 2D barcode, you can have your GTIN, you can have expiration date, batch lot, and serial number, and that barcode is still smaller than your 1D barcode. Now, what you're looking at here on the screen is the information encoded into 2D barcodes, just in different formats. What I'm going to focus on is GS1 Digital Link URI syntax on the right, because that's what is going to be empowering your barcode to go beep at checkout, but also open up all of those use cases James was talking about, because it connects your package to the internet, and the internet is vast. So you can see it has your GTIN in there, your UPC code that usually is in your 1D barcode, inside of that URL format. So you'll have your domain name first and then the product identifying data after. All of this was created to definitely follow web standards so that the barcode works just the same way that the internet works. Whenever somebody scans it with their phone, it takes them to this beautiful glorified experience, however that may look. So the standard data is the same. It's just, again, the vehicle that's going to be carrying the information and then what's able to be utilized outside of that. And if you go to the next slide, this will talk a lot about that simple redirection. So you can see that at the top, you have your GS1 Digital Link, which will have your domain name of the brand. And this brand is fictitious. It's something that we made up just for example purposes. And then you'll have the GTIN information after it. Now, that O1 is considered a GS1 application identifier. That just helps systems know that the data coming after that O1 is going to be that GTIN, or typically recognized as a UPC code, but it'll be in 14-digit format. Now, that web URL address can be redirected to wherever you want as a brand owner. It can go to your current landing page that if you already have a QR code on pack, it can just redirect to that same page, or it can go anywhere you want. So as James was talking about Orijin Plus and what it provides, this is that redirection aspect. It'll open up everything that he was talking about: recycling, compliance, even that user-driven content. You can even create a full community around your brand, right? Because a lot of people want to connect with their brands and the values that those brands have. So are the products actually having that proper ingredient information in it? Has it gone through any type of compliance or regulation to ensure that it's not toxic and all of those things? And that's a big deal to consumers. So being able to not only display that information, but also have your barcode go beep at checkout is a big win for everybody in industry worldwide. And if you go to the next slide, this is just another example of what James was talking about. The 2D barcode is the beginning, right? It has your product information in it, and it has a URL in it. So you can go beep at checkout. You can have use cases in retail that help you address certain recalls, or even if a product is expiring, you can provide a discount for something that may expire in the next 10 days. There's just so much that goes into it, but it is important to know that this barcode is limitless, right? It can hold so much data, and when you're connecting your product to the internet is limitless. So it's just the beginning. It's an entry point into what your product is truly capable of. And then with that, I'll pass it back over to James.
Awesome. Thanks, Andrew. So look, I think not to sort of elaborate too much more there, but with the quick flyover video, I did sort of demonstrate adding a 2D barcode in terms of it's really adding your GTIN and then any of your attribute identifiers and generating. And I think one thing to be clear on here, you're not buying another 2D barcode. And sorry, you've already got your code, you're just converting it to a 2D barcode. So it's not an additional requirement. You've got the code. This is just going to power it to do more things. And highly recommend anyone going down this path is setting up your own domain. So within our platform, very quickly, it's your domain, your control. You're using our platform for feature. It's not because you've jumped onto our domain and you've printed our domain. Be very, very quick to sort of make sure it's your domain. But that process is very quick and easy, and your ability to convert them into smart codes. So we do have unlimited base codes where you can be redirecting to your website, and then when you want to power them with some richer content, you convert them over to smart codes as you will. And then with our particular offer with Startup CPG, you've got 6 of those smart codes to start using and use forever. I think one quick thing, and not to sort of, this doesn't need to be go too deep with the GS1 resolver, but it is a term and a phrase that brand owners, you will start to hear a bit more about in the next 6 months and definitely within the next 18 months. So GS1 resolver is to think of it like a smart traffic controller for QR codes. Okay, so as a connected packaging platform, we run the resolver on your behalf. It identifies where you are. So very quickly, we identify what sort of information we need to serve to this particular person in this particular region, and it identifies who you are. So what we looked at a lot today was what the consumer is seeing, but that can vary greatly in the future. And I am going to shoot this forward to the future, but it could be a customs officer scanning a product, and you can extend the URL link type. Okay, so that could be link type equals compliance. And if you're following the standard, and this, I'm not saying this is the standard, but it could evolve to the space where you nest a certain level of documentation in this link type. The customer officer app extends, they know to extend the URL with this particular query parameter, and they will receive the document that they require. So that's the big future of data interoperability. It's the extension of these URLs which into link types. Equally, it could be a machine scanning. Okay, so your distributor you may have exported, and I'll use Japan as an example, and you're in a marketplace listing in Japan. They could potentially be scanning a 2D barcode and extracting your hero image, your product information, your nutrition information panel. So that, again, same QR code, different application. It's machine scanning, and think of your resolver like an organized Dropbox. Okay, in my demo, you would have seen me just sort of click on it, but you can be nesting the relevant information. And that's when Andrew's talking about, the common global language, right? GS1 is very important because we all have to align on this standard, and I will do this and I'll put this here, and then everyone will expect it. Okay, so that's where the great work that Andrew and the team are doing is to get everyone on a common language, and then platforms like Orijin Plus simplify it for a brand user. It is, I'd like to sort of make sure that everyone understands this is not complicated, right? It's really sharing your data in a way that you just sort of plug and play, and away it goes, and whoever's scanning it's going to get the relevant information different. And ultimately, my big point at the start was really, if we focus on the modern consumer, the person seeking more information, a lot of this extra compliance and this extra disclosure starts to sort of just fall into place. So if we can get that information that they're seeking ready, it's a super powerful tool for your always on digital campaign that's traveling on your packaging. So I think that's pretty much where we're at in terms of official presentation. Did you have any questions there, Daniel, that you've seen pop up?
Yeah, a couple coming in. The first was just from me, as I was just wondering, we're going to generate all these QR codes. How many are there out there in the universe? So I just was excited to share with everybody my Google result, which is it's essentially impossible to use up all the QR codes that are out there. The maximum capacity is 256 to the power of 2950, which is basically a number with like 1 and then 7,100 zeros after it. That's how many permutations there are. So we're good. Okay, a couple questions that are coming in. So Heather was asking, like, do I still need to have info hosted with a third-party host like Syndigo, like the barcodes?
Yeah, so I was actually typing that in, but I figured it's better to answer that live. If you're currently using a data pool like Syndigo, you're going to continue to use that because that's going to be your global database, your global repository for your product information. So whenever you create a G10 with GS1, that you are getting a subscription to Data Hub and going into being a part of the global data synchronization network. And that's when you're uploading information about your product, such as the name, the size, the dimensions, any other thing around it, that will go directly through your third party. But that G10 is what's going to go into your 2D barcode or your 1D barcode. So all that process is still staying the same.
Unless James can also figure out how to get all of the retailers to agree to pull all of that product data off Orijin Plus instead of us having to go and pay Syndigo to do it. So, James, let's put that on the wish list.
Yeah, look, and not to say, I see the future where that is achievable, and the way that GS1 is structuring the ability for the information to be nested under headers. Not to put anyone out of business here, but I do see for the right application, there's opportunity.
um, I hope so. It's funny. It's one of those businesses where like no one really knows how to start and get your stuff into Syndigo and One World Sync, and like there aren't really even companies that do it for you because it's just like not that expensive. It's just a pain in the butt. So we're rooting for you to do that, James. Thank you.
Yeah, so
All
we
right.
do subscribe to the GDSN as well. So that can feed into our platform. So again, you don't have to rekey it into ours. We can subscribe to that equally.
I was going to say
Okay.
many of the solution providers are part of that global data synchronization network. So James, you're already in
Yeah.
it.
Okay. So just to kind of reiterate for everybody, you would still get your GS1 G10, right, which is the identifier for your product. And then you can use a platform like Orijin Plus then to create QR codes off of that with all of this cool functionality and building these things like web apps where people could scan it and get a bunch of cool information on it. So a couple questions coming in, like if I already have a barcode, can I reuse the same numbers? If you have a barcode for your products, you have a G10, a global identifier for your product. So yeah, you would be able to put that G10 into something like this to create QR codes that then have that G10, your GS1 identifier, and additional information. Right? Capture that good? Okay,
Correct. Yeah.
cool.
Yeah.
Okay, just looking through some of the other ones. So somebody had asked about like um lot code and best by date. That yeah, because the QR code typically on your packaging is like that's going to go on your unit is not going to change with every production run. So like that may not have it on the can, but you may have more capability printing QR codes on your secondary packaging as things go through the supply chain. Because typically if you're like running on a beverage co-man, they're laser printing onto your tray information about that production run, and even onto the can itself, like the lot code and stuff like that. So I think there'll be more capabilities at that level, versus trying to print a different actual QR code that all has all that info at this point. But who knows what'll happen in the future.
So I
Uh,
will touch on that and say that the redirect aspect is what will be useful there, the resolver. So you don't have to have your lot and your Best Buy date directly into your QR code using GS1 Digital Link. You can link to it, right? So as long as if you're pre-printing with the G10 and your QR code with the GS1 Digital Link, that redirection can link to that more information. Now, if your downstream partners need to readily access it, have access to it, then of course that's a consideration of having those things into your inline printing process. So it's doing it at the right time. And there is
Yes.
also
In
a
our
dual migrational period. So when you're having your QR code unpacked, you'll still have to have your 1D barcode for a time period until all of your downstream partners no longer need to scan 1D barcodes and they can just use 2D barcodes.
and someone asked about that. Tom was like, "What do you think the timeline is for people to start adopting that? Like the stock managers at your grocery store or the 3PLs? Like, how soon do you think they'll adopt the QR code?"
So there's many brands and retailers and warehouse distribution centers that are already adopting 2D barcodes. It may not be just a QR code because there's also a data matrix and a GS1 data matrix, but because these barcodes hold a lot more information, it makes your supply chain resilient because you'll have transparency and visibility into what those products are, where they're going, and if you ever need to pull them out of the supply chain. So it's currently being adopted today in many ways. It's just that what we're focusing on is that QR code going deep at checkout, being able to use that in retail stores. And so by the end of 2027, all retailers around the globe should be able to process 2D barcodes just for that purpose.
Okay, great. So another question. So somebody asked, is there a platform you recommend for creating all these pages where the information can be pulled for the customers, or can these be done on any platform? So that is sort of the Orijin Plus capability, right? They have these pre-built templates. You can go in there and enter in your product transparency information and like loyalty programs, all that stuff. So they kind of pre-build these things for you that the QR code could redirect to. I'm just going to put in the chat here one more time. Orijin Plus, they have a cool offer for all of you brands out there. So if just for another 2 days, it's valid. So if you can basically get their free Grow Plus Plus plan for life for free. So no credit card or anything. So I just put that link in here so you could immediately start creating some of that content around your brand that would then be linked through the QR code. But then like in theory, you can have the stuff going anywhere to your website, to whatever you want, but they have a lot of this cool pre-built stuff that has a lot of capabilities and can enable loyalty campaigns. Right, James? Did I miss anything?
Yeah, so in the platform, we have unlimited, what we call a base 2D barcode. So you could have 100 pointing to your website, and you've got 6 smart codes. So that's the ultimate amount of features that you can start to connect to in the demonstration. So yeah, thoroughly recommend jumping in and yeah, making light work of creating those codes, and when you're ready, you obviously you can print them.
All right. Does it work in Canada? Do we need different barcodes for international customs and stuff like that?
So the rollout's universal, and then one code, can have application. Just like your barcode can travel, and if you're creating regional specific ones already, then the recommendation would be to keep that. But yeah, it's wherever your barcode is right now, and if it's traveling international, then that would be exactly the same.
Okay. A lot of questions. They keep coming in. How soon can I put QR codes as barcodes? Can retailers read it with their regular scanners? I think you can put it right now. I like the idea of putting it right now. Just why not? Have both. I feel like, right, Andrew, to be safe, everyone's going to have both on there for at least
Yeah,
until 2027 and probably a lot longer.
exactly. So you don't want to get rid of the barcode that your current partners are using, even your downstream partners, right? If they can't scan the QR code and consume that data, that kind of disrupts your supply chain process. So until you have that information as a brand, and every brand will be different based on who they're working with, once you know that your downstream partners, they no longer need a 1D barcode and they can just use 2D all the way into the retailer, then you're good to remove that 1D. But there is that migrational period for sure.
It's going to be sort of like, the world of Apple Pay, where even a couple years ago, or like, I still don't know how to get this to work on my phone. And now if they don't have Apple Pay, it's kind of ludicrous. Like, what do you mean
Right.
you don't
Like
have Apple? Like,
exactly.
come
That's
on.
why I said the speed of technology. Everything moves very fast.
And then all of a sudden it's like, oh, if I want to get paid or if I want to sell this thing, I better have it. So, okay, that market forces. Okay. I think we're getting most of them. What are the tool sets that keep QR codes and brands secure so we're not exposed to bad actors? Are there any? I don't even know what's possible out there. Probably there's some hackers who want to take everything. What could they do? Anything?
Well, I'll let James touch on that. I
Yeah, look,
was
I think QR codes have, like, I think the awareness around, if you're entering an entry point onto the web and you're putting in payment details, and then it's like the awareness needs to be there. But if it's an information page, there is ultimately very little risk. So it's sort of the same sort of guardrails need to be up when you're going to a website and you're putting in a credit card. If you entered via QR code, it's essentially the same practice. So I think that the awareness from broader community would be around that. But a 2D barcode is very low risk in it being an information page.
I think
and
it's sort of like the airport thing where people put like a new plug over their plug and then try to take your info. So if someone goes and stickers your QR code with their QR code, I don't know, maybe they could do something funky. But I don't think there's any way to stop that.
No, you're right.
Never
I
heard of
think
that happening.
no, I think the scams are like over parking meters, right? So you're paying on the
Yeah.
parking meter. So again, but you're exchanging the payment, right? So that's the risk. It's the payment. If there's no payment, no risk.
And as it
Andrew.
pertains to brands and packages, if you're currently using a QR code, you have a web team that's going to be handling all of those redirects and make sure that that code is. So as far as not having to experience someone covering your QR code on your packaging in a retail store that's for scams, which is highly unlikely because it's going through a full retail environment, I think you're fine there. But I wouldn't scan any rogue QR codes that are printed on walls or random bathroom stalls. Don't do that.
Andrew learned from experience.
No,
No, just kidding.
definitely not. Definitely not. Just recommend not to
Just
do
going
it.
around scanning stuff, just
I
gambling with
want to know
his
if it has
phone.
GS1 standards in it.
Hey, we live in New York. We take risks here. I love it. So I think we got through most of the questions. I guess just one I like that came in at the end is like, what is required about QR codes? What will be required? Like, is there some standard that we're all going to have to abide by, especially when they're eventually the only thing on the packaging?
Oh, I think a big one there is just there is a printing spec, right? There's minimum sizes as there is with your barcode. So I think within our platform you can get access to those pretty quickly. But again, like we need to be adhering to those requirements on pack, and that's probably the main one when it comes to printing.
Yeah, that's exactly it. There's only standards around printing and application for the most part. Everything else is the standardized format of the data, which is already in line with what a lot of brands are doing today because they have a 1D barcode on pack. So they're already within those standards.
One thing I do like a lot better about QR codes is when I was a brand setting up my barcode of like, oh, we're going to do the minimum size one. Like, is it really going to scan? Like, I don't know. They're printing the cans right now. Please ask them, like, do they have a scanner? Can they somehow check this? With QR codes, like, we can all check those with our phones too. So
Yeah,
you'll kind of know if it's going to scan. Maybe try it in like low late and stuff just to be sure. But that is
yeah,
kind of a nice thing. And then just like finally, as we're wrapping up here. So we talk about the 2027 horizon period. So that's sort of like when we're asking retailers to all be able to scan it, but like there are some that aren't going to be able to. So we'll probably still have both on there for a while. And then at some point, probably you don't have to put the barcode on. That a fair way to summarize it?
yeah, definitely.
Okay. Cool. All right. Well, hey, thank you, everybody. I really want to thank the Orijin Plus team here and our friends from GS1 as well. We love working with you guys just because it is honestly very anxiety inducing to set up your barcode just because what if something goes wrong? And it's so nice that you guys are here and like you're in our Slack channel. We can tag you with questions because it's a very like it feels like a very high pressure moment to set up the codes. And I'm just really excited about the whole future of what we'll all be able to do. And it will be like a huge movement at some point where just all of a sudden it's so normal for everyone to be scanning everything and learning all about, especially in certain kinds of product categories like functional, where people are just gonna have a lot of questions. So thank you guys very much. And just kind of a final reminder that if you want to get in touch with the Orijin Plus team, I just pasted the link here one final time. And if you have any other questions, you can probably follow up with them via that link as well.
Absolutely, yeah, all welcome, and we love talking with brands. So if any questions, definitely fire them over.
All right. Thank you, James. Thank you,
Thank you,
Andrew.
Daniel.
Thank
Cheers,
you,
Andrew.
everyone, for all the questions. All right. Bye, everyone.
Cheers. Bye.